Hey there, I'm LaLa Cochran. I'm an actor here in Atlanta. As I told you in the last episode, I'm here to share with you some of the things I'm doing to keep safe and sane during this coronavirus. One of them is cooking, the other is gardening, and we're out here at our garden. My husband, Tom Stinson, and I, we garden in Ormwood Park at a place called Urban Farm at Ormwood, UFO. These are muscadine vines that are growing, and we're going to take you up and show you some of our garden. Okay, so here we are. This is our little $99 greenhouse that we ordered from online. And we started these seeds in here at our home in January. Woo, it's a blast of heat. And you can see these were little seeds we saved from last year's plants. Some of them we saved. Those are some flowers we've put in. Down here are some peppers that we actually got at Bob's at the farmer's market. These are tomatoes we got at the farmer's market. But we're gonna take these today or tomorrow and put them here in our garden. We've got 5 big long rows here, and we're gonna have our tomatoes back here this year. This is our trellis line here, and we'll have pole beans and cucumbers along this, and up front is where we'll have our beans and our okra, our peppers and eggplant. And these are the flowers that are growing right here in the middle. So that's a quick tour of the garden. So my husband and I started farming out here in 2012. We don't live on the property. We live in Virginia Highland, but this is about 4 miles away. And we've just learned as we go. Some people might see what we're doing and go, horrors, that's not the way you put a tomato plant in, but it's worked for us. So I want to share some of that stuff with you. This happens to be some lettuces that we put in, and spinach and kale, and down here radishes. And then here is our flower bed. These have come back every year for the past 3 years. They're not perennials, but they just reseed themselves. And we threw some seeds down the other day that are already coming up. You can see these little seedlings, these sprouts. Okay, so we are gonna mark down our rows where we're gonna put our tomato plants. This is about a 55-foot row, and I'm gonna put a little bit of lime every 3 feet. All the way down this row. I'm putting it down every 3 feet so the plants have enough room to grow, because they get really big, they get really tall. It's amazing how much space they take up. And the reason I'm doing it with lime is A, it's easy to see on the soil, and B, it's good for the soil. It's calcium, and that helps with lots of stuff. We had our soil tested last year, and we've added amendments, so the soil's really good now, but it doesn't hurt to have a little fast-acting lime in your rows. Okay, the first tomato is about to go in. This is a BV, stands for Black Vernissage. We get our seeds from Baker Creek Heirloom. So I'm gonna lay this guy in a little bit sideways. All of these little hairs, or what, I'm sure there's some name for them, will turn into roots. And since this guy is so leggy, I'm just gonna kind of bury him up to here. And we've put some manure in this hole, and I'm just gonna scoop this, take the weed out. All this good soil that we dug out, we're gonna put back in. And make sure he's propped up. But that's a happy little plant. Oh, my nails are gonna be ruined, I'm telling you. Gloves are overrated. All right, the first tomato of the 2020 season is in the dirt. Okay, the best thing about farming gardening is harvesting. And this is going to be the first harvest. We planted radishes and they grow really quickly. And they're really muddy right now. And they're kind of skinny. They're always long, but anyhow, we're gonna go home and make a radish butter, which is one of my favorite things. I'm not actually a big fan of radishes, but to grate them up and blend them with some softened butter and chives, so delicious on a saltine cracker. Okay, we're back from the garden with our lettuce and our radishes, and here we, oh my goodness, how did all that get in there? This is so weird. People keep putting stuff in my buggy. Guess we'll just have to hide it somewhere. But here's our harvest. We'll go inside and get to work. Hey, we're back from the garden, all cleaned up, brushed up, and we brought back the radishes that we picked, and we're gonna make radish butter with chives. I have cleaned the radishes, you're welcome, and grated some of them here on this box grater, on the big holes of the box grater. Radishes have a lot of water, and so what I'm gonna do is put them in this paper towel, and oh goodness, jelly jar. What have I been thinking? It's time to fill up the jelly jar. Hey, Boda. Oh, listen to that. Coming right out of the spigot. And don't knock it if you haven't tried it, people. It's delicious. Okay, so what we're gonna do, back to the radishes, is just put them in a paper towel or a tea towel or something. See all of that liquid that's dripping out? Just to dry them off a little bit. And then I've got some butter here that is softened. And some chives. And this is all like, if you love radishes, put a ton of radishes. This would be about 2 or 3 tablespoons. I particularly love the Chives, the Chives. And I'm using fancy pants butter for this. Chimay. I've been saving it up for a special occasion, which this is. All right, so it's in here. And just get a fork and mush it all together, blend it up. And this is really good on toasted baguette slices. If you've got baguette slices, we're in a saltine kind of people right now because I didn't want to go to the store. But it's just a really elegant, simple way to throw something together that most people haven't had before, because in my brain, I invented it. Butter and radish is kind of a famous French preparation, but I think this is just easier. And don't salt it. Use unsalted butter, and don't salt it now because the radishes will sweat and there'll be just like a little pool of water around. What I like to do is serve it alongside with some salt, preferably some Maldon salt, because it's got a nice flavor and it's got a nice texture. It's kind of crystally. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is make some Gougères, and that is a French pastry. We're also going to use some of these chives, and so we'll have a little cocktail party. Okay, now we are going to make Gougères, which is a lovely, elegant French pastry, also called pâte à choux. It's the same pastry that you make eclairs, cream puffs, and Gougères is the savory version of this pastry. It's very simple, very elegant. All it takes is a cup of water, 4 tablespoons of butter. You melt the butter in the water, and then you put in a cup of flour, stir that up, add some eggs, some cheeses. It's wonderful. And we've got our 1 cup of water. I'm going to add our 4 tablespoons of butter. I would recommend cutting the butter into little pieces. It melts quicker. Turn the heat up on this. And the great thing about Gougères is they don't take a whole lot of time. They're not very expensive to make. The only thing that's going to ding your pocketbook is the cheese. Typically, Gruyere cheese is used for these, but you can use any sharp, salty cheese. And you add a little, half a teaspoon of flour, a pinch, and I use a heavy pinch of cayenne. And you can put any kind of cheese. You could add scallions, you could add chives, thyme, dill. You could add walnuts. You could do anything that you like. I wouldn't do anything too heavy like blue cheese or bacon. I've done them like that and they just get too heavy. The pleasure of this pastry is that it's very light and elegant. Okay, I'm gonna pour the flour in all at once and stir that. And then when we come back, we will add in, we'll lower the heat a little bit. We'll add in the eggs one by one. So go get your jelly jar, and we'll be right back. Cheers. Okay, so now we have our nice dough that's come together in this pot. A lot of recipes say just go ahead and add the eggs in here. I like to put it in another bowl that isn't hot so you don't take the risk of the eggs scrambling. And you just stir this. You could put it in a stand-up mixer and do it in there, but I just think that's one more thing to clean up. I like to do it in here and use my big, strong muscles. So you get that first egg incorporated. You add the next one. And we'll keep adding these eggs until everything is blended in. Okay, so now all of the eggs have been incorporated into the flour and water mixture. And now I'm gonna add about 5 ounces of grated Gruyere cheese. Like I said, you can use what you want, but not something soft like mozzarella, even though that's a lovely cheese. You want something that's a little firmer and harder. And I'm gonna add some chives, because I love the chive. We are having that chive butter as well. We're having a Zoom call with the family later. That's why I'm making these. I'm gonna show them what I got. And so normally I would want to use a different herb, maybe use thyme for this, but I didn't have any time. And so I'm using chives. And then I've got a little bit of grated Parmesan here that we're going to finish them with before we put them in the oven. Now, here is our tray. I ran out of parchment paper, but I had a Silpat, which is a silicone cooking mat, and that way you don't have to butter the pan. You can either use ice cream scoop, you can use a pastry bag. If you don't have a pastry bag, you can use a Ziploc bag and put it in here, snip a little hole off here and just boom, 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 boom. I prefer to do it in a way that makes less mess. Roscoe, use your words. We'll be right back. Okay, our pet is quieted down. I'm gonna do some of these with this ice cream scoop that make a big puff. And I'm also gonna make some smaller. If you wanted more of a single bite size, you can just use 2 spoons. Like this. But you can make them as big or as small as you want. Also, this makes a whole lot. They'll all get eaten up no matter what you do. You can freeze the dough before it's cooked. Freeze these little guys in your freezer on the tray, and then when they're completely frozen, you can take them out, take them off the tray, put them in a Ziploc bag, and just store them like that for as long as you need to. I would say a couple of months. And then when you're ready to use them, just put the frozen little nuggets right onto your cookie tray and into the oven. I'm gonna give these guys a little bit more. You want them to have enough mass that when they puff up, they look beautiful and delicious. Okay, so I'm gonna put these in the oven at 450 for 15 minutes. I'm gonna jack the temperature down to 350 for another 10 to 15. Oh, I forgot one thing. Let's go through and top them all with a little bit of this grated Parmesan cheese. This will give it a nice, salty, crusty bite and a beautiful golden little chapeau. All right, they're going in, people. All right, the Gougères are almost ready. See, we've dropped it to 350. And let's take a look. Oh, they're beautiful. They're not as puffy as I want them to be, but it's okay. Come on, tray. Jesus. All right, this tray isn't coming out. Swine oven. All right, here we go. I'm just gonna do this on the fly. There we go. And let's see how this Silpat handles the, woo, okay, hey, that worked out. Doesn't have to be perfect. Turn that thing off. Okay, so here we have our beautiful Gougère, cheesy and delicious. We are having a Zoom call with my family, but I also, a while ago, got a text from a friend who was in the neighborhood to pick up a puzzle, that his mother loaned me. And so I'm gonna put on my trusty face mask and take these outside and place them on a table. Okay, so I think they're here. Yep, they're here. Bill Murphy and his son Will J. Murphy. Hi guys, I'll bring it out in a second. There, your Gougère. I wish I could come over there and have one with you.
Sister, these look delicious.
They might still be a little too hot to handle, like someone we know. Okay, that's a tired old joke. Is it too hot?
Yeah.
Okay, you can remove your thing to put the food in.
Sure.
We're standing back about 10 feet here. Oh, I hope you like them. I'm out of my mind.
Holy cow.
Yeah? And they're so easy. I pulled this together in like half an hour.
And these are all for us?
Yes, you can take them with you.
We certainly can't give them back.
No, you can't because they've been contaminated by the plague.
I know.
Okay, well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I'm going to put this puzzle here for your mom. It's 1,000 pieces. Honey, get a picture of that.
I'm going to need to leave it there for 3 hours before I touch it because of
the plague?
germs on the plague germs.
Thank y'all for coming.
Thank you so much.
Tell your mom thank you for that puzzle.
I will. Remember,
We're all in this together.
everything will be all right.
That's the truth. Bye, brother. Thanks, Will J. Cheers. On to the chicken and dumplings. Okay, so what we're going to start with, this is the start of the soup base. We're going to use 4 tablespoons of schmaltz. You can use butter, but I like to use the schmaltz because it's got so much flavor. And I should go ahead and get this heat on. What am I thinking? Just medium high. Okay, so this is heating up. So if you're using butter, just let the butter melt. And what we're gonna do basically is make a roux. And so we'll put this in and heat it up. You don't wanna heat it too high. You don't wanna burn it because that'll give it a bad flavor. But this is what's gonna make the base of the soup, which is the mattress that your dumplings are going to be sleeping on or floating on. Actually, it's kind of a water bed. I'm going to put a teaspoon of dried thyme in there. That gives it some more flavor. And we just get this so it starts to get some color. And then we're going to add some either sweet vermouth or sherry. We drank all the vermouth in our Zoom cocktails, so we're stranded here with this sherry. 2 tablespoons. I'm not measuring it. There you go. Might be a little more, might be a little less. It's okay. The only thing that you really kind of have to measure in this is you want to have the right ratio of butter to flour for your roux, and you want to have the dumplings be, you know, the right proportions because you're making a dough. And now we're going to put in 4 cups of this rich chicken stock, and we're just going to cook and cook, and this will get really thick. And the thing about chicken and dumplings, I like to use carrots and celery. I steam these beforehand. And you can use as much or as little carrots and celery as you want. I like to have a lot in there because it makes me feel more virtuous about eating chicken fat and flour and butter. And all right, I'm going to let this thicken up a little bit. And I'm also going to have some more stock at the ready because even though the recipe I base this on calls for 4 cups of stock, that's not going to be enough because when you start laying these dumplings in, it gets really crowded. That's why I'm using this big pot because you want to have a lot of space for your dumplings to kind of cook separate from each other so they're not on top of each other. So we're going to let this thicken up, and then we'll come back and I will start with the actual dumplings, the star of the show. Okay, the dumplings. All right, what we have here is a cup of whole milk, and we are going to add 3 tablespoons of butter. You can do this with schmaltz, but I used most of my schmaltz for the soup base over here. So we're going to let this melt. And while that does that, what we have here is 2 cups of all-purpose flour. Yeah. And then I have a tablespoon of baking powder and 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt. Something you should know about baking powder. I didn't know this until my mother brought it to my attention several years ago. It has an expiration date. And if you're one of these people who just keeps things in your pantry forever, check this because if it gets too old, it won't help your baking rise. And we're going to mix this together. Okay. So that's all that. Meanwhile, this is almost melted. I'm going to turn this down and give it another stir. And while we're at it, I'm going to go ahead and dump these vegetables into the soup base. And you can put as much or as little chicken as you want. You might want to, use half of your chicken for this, and you might want to make some chicken salad tomorrow. So you see how this has already gotten pretty full. There's not a whole lot of room left in here. That's why I have some backup stock to pour in, which I'm going to do in a moment. But meanwhile, the butter is melted. And I'm going to use let me use this fork. So just put this in slowly. And this will make, oops, I made a mess. Okay, so stir it up. And this could be your dumpling, which is basically a biscuit. But if you want something more interesting, say, you can put some herbs in here, and it'll make it a more flavorful dough, and it will also make it a more appealing visually. I have some chives and some dill, and that's about, I don't know, 1/3 cup. Use as much as you want. I wished I had a little more dill, because I love the way dill tastes. I wonder why our dog isn't talking to us. He usually starts making noise when he hears the top come off the chicken. I'm not kidding you. He can be such a loudmouth. Okay, so just keep stirring this. And now what we're going to do, after I get this pulled together, we're going to come back and I'm going to roll it out. The blob. Okay, it's time to roll out our dumplings. This is our dough. And I don't know if anybody has a rolling pin anymore. This is my grandmother's. Hey, Flo. So just gonna roll this out. I put some flour underneath because this can sometimes be a little bit sticky. And I cut my dumplings in strips and just tear them into pieces, just because that's the way I grew up having them, and that's the way I've been making them. My husband, who's a Yankee, grew up in Pittsburgh, and he used to have his dumplings with like a round biscuit. And my way is the right way. Let's go long ways. Ooh, we have no sticking, that's good. And just to be clean, I'll shake off the excess flour. All right, so we're gonna come over here and just lay these in. But you wanna do this slowly, and you wanna make sure you don't put one dumpling on top of another because they'll fuse together and it'll just be messy. So we'll let those do. Those felt a tiny bit thick to me, so I'm gonna roll this out a little thinner because they expand. And the dumpling is just the best thing. This would probably be my last meal if I were to commit a crime, which I wouldn't commit a crime. Oh, somebody put some more. How did this happen? Somebody put some more juice in my jelly jar. I'm a victim. Delicious. Okay, let's cut some more. Cheers, it's ready for tasting. I mean, the chicken and dumplings. All right, what you wanna do, I've put a little bit of salt and pepper in here, about a teaspoon of salt, several grinds of pepper. You just wanna taste. I think this needs a good bit more salt, but I'm a salty person, all right? I think just get it to the base level, and then if you're serving it to a group of people, people can season it additionally when they get it. Something I wanted to share is if you find that your soup isn't as thick as you want it, if it's a little runny, there's a wonderful thing called a beurre manier, B-E-U-R-R-E space M-A-N-I-E, and it's basically just a combination of flour and fat. Usually it's butter. But if you want to thicken your sauce, your gravy, you don't want to put flour in because it'll separate and it won't be. But if you wanted to, use equal amount fat and flour, 2 tablespoons to 2 tablespoons. You want your butter or your schmaltz softened so that you can do this. I kind of like the thickness of this right now, but I wanted to share that with you because I had some schmaltz, a little bit of schmaltz left in here, and wanted to demonstrate that technique. Now we're going to serve a little. Let me get a dumpling, my God, what am I thinking about? And you might also look in here and go, oh, I need more chicken. Throw some more chicken in. I mean, it's not hard and fast. The only thing that's hard and fast is you want to have an equal amount of fat to flour in your base, roughly the right amount. And you want to have basically the right amount of flour to milk and butter in your dumpling. This is so delicious. There's no way I can tell you how good this is. Thank you all so much for watching episode 2 of Cooking a la LaLa. Hope you enjoyed it. If you're interested in the recipes, you can go to thehorizontheater.com and they will have the recipes up there. We're going to do beef short ribs with some garden kale and turnips and turnip greens next week. And sooner or later, we're going to get around to doing an episode for vegetarians. But thank you for watching, and let us know what you like.
For more information and to download all the recipes that you've seen on this episode of Cooking a la LaLa, please visit horizontheater.com.
Hey everybody, we're here to present the 2 quarts of homegrown, home-canned tomatoes to Eve Eckert, supporter of the theater and of this show. So thank you, Eve, so much for watching the show.
Oh, and for LaLa. Oh, here's to LaLa.
Oh,
The show is so fabulous.
Stop. Anyhow, if you are interested in the show and want to see another season, think about making a donation and you might win 2 quarts of tomatoes as well. Cheers.
Cheers. Oh, I'm so thrilled.
There you go.
All right.